The morning sun was
Oh
bright and
my
yellow as it came through the
God.
tall windows of the royal palace. It was a Tuesday in early autumn, and the palace was already busy with people moving here and there. Maids were cleaning the hallways. Workers were arranging flowers in beautiful vases. The palace was preparing for an important dinner that would happen in the evening. But nobody knew that something important would happen before that dinner even began. Princess Charlotte walked slowly through the long hallway on the third floor of the palace. Her shoes made soft sounds on the marble floor as she moved forward. The hallway was very long, with paintings of old kings and queens hanging on the walls. The paintings looked down at everyone who walked past them. Charlotte had walked through this hallway thousands of times in her life, but today felt different. Today felt heavy and sad. Captain James Mitchell walked about 15 steps behind her, as he always did. He was the head of her security team, and he had protected Princess Charlotte for 3 years. James was a tall man with serious eyes and gray hair at the sides. He wore a dark blue uniform with gold buttons that shined in the morning light. He was very good at his job, but today he noticed something strange. His princess did not walk the way she usually walked. Normally, Princess Charlotte walked with her head up and her shoulders back. She walked like someone who had learned to be perfect since the day she was born. She walked like a princess should walk, with grace and confidence. But today, her shoulders were a little bent forward. Her head was not quite as high. James had learned that small changes in the body often show big changes in the heart. Behind Captain James walked two other guards. Their names were Thomas and Michael. They were younger than James, maybe 30 years old each. They also noticed something was wrong with the princess. They looked at each other with eyes that said, "Do you see this too?" The three guards had worked together for so long that they could talk without using words. They understood each other with just a look. Charlotte stopped walking for a moment near a big window. Outside the window, the palace garden was very green and beautiful. Flowers were blooming in red, yellow, and purple colors. The garden looked like a painting. But Charlotte did not look happy when she looked at this beautiful garden. Instead, her eyes became wet, like she wanted to cry. She stood very still for almost 1 minute, just looking out at the garden. Captain James stopped walking too. He pretended to look at his watch, but he was really watching her carefully. He saw that her right hand was shaking a little. He saw that she took a long, deep breath. He saw that she was trying very hard to be strong. James had protected many people in his life, but Charlotte was different. She was not just a job to him. He cared about her, and seeing her sad made him sad too. After 1 minute, Charlotte started walking again, but now James noticed something else. She was walking toward the east marble staircase. This was not where she usually went in the morning. Normally on Tuesdays, she had a meeting with the palace secretary at 9 o'clock. She had a lunch with the queen at 1 o'clock. She had a dress fitting at 3 o'clock. Her whole day was planned and organized, but she was not going to any of these places. Instead, she was going to the east staircase and then to the garden. When she reached the staircase, she put her hand on the cold marble railing. The railing was white and smooth, and it had been there for 100 years. Many princesses before Charlotte had touched this same railing. Many queens and kings had walked down these same stairs. But today, Charlotte touched the railing like it was the only thing holding her up. She held it very tight, and James could see that her hand was white because she was holding so hard. Thomas, the younger guard, moved his eyes to James. James gave a very small shake of his head. This meant, "Do not move closer. Give her space." Thomas understood. He had learned that sometimes the best way to protect someone is to let them have a moment alone, even when you are standing right there. Charlotte began to walk down the stairs very slowly. Her hand never left the railing. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. She was like someone walking in a dream, not paying attention to anything around her. At the bottom of the stairs, she turned left. This direction led to the east garden, the place where she loved to sit under the old oak tree and read books. The three guards followed her, but they stayed far behind. They walked quietly so she would not hear their feet. This was a skill that made them good at their job, to be there for protection but not be seen or heard. To watch but not disturb, to care but not interrupt. When they reached the garden door, Charlotte pushed it open slowly. The door was very heavy and made a long sound as it opened. She stepped outside, and the fresh air of the garden touched her face. For just a moment, she closed her eyes. For just a moment, she looked peaceful. But James could still see the sadness in her face, even with her eyes closed. She walked to the old oak tree and sat down on the white stone bench underneath it. The bench was smooth and cold. Around her, the garden was beautiful and quiet. Birds were singing sweet songs. Flowers were moving slowly in the soft wind. Everything was peaceful and calm. But Princess Charlotte sat very still and very quiet. She did not look at the flowers. She did not listen to the birds. She was looking at something inside herself, at something that was making her very sad. Captain James stood far away, near the garden gate. He was still and quiet like a statue, but his eyes never left the princess. And in his heart, he knew that something important had happened today. He knew that his job was not just about keeping her safe from bad people or danger. His job was about understanding that even a princess, someone who had everything a person could want, could still feel pain and sadness. And that was why the guards immediately took notice of Princess Charlotte that morning. That was when everything began to change. Princess Charlotte sat under the old oak tree for a very long time. She did not move. She did not cry, although tears were sitting in her eyes ready to fall. She just sat there and looked at the ground. The white stone bench was cold under her, but she did not seem to notice. She was thinking about something very heavy and very sad. Captain James stood near the garden gate with Thomas and Michael. They did not talk to each other. They did not move very much. They just watched and waited. This was their job, to be there, to keep her safe, and to understand when she needed to be left alone. James had been doing this job for 30 years with different people, but he had never seen a princess like Charlotte. She was not like the stories people told about princesses. She was real. She had real feelings. As Charlotte sat on the tree, she thought about a letter she received 3 days ago. The letter was from her best friend, a woman named Emma. Charlotte and Emma had grown up together in the palace. They had gone to school together, eaten meals together, and shared secrets together. Emma was not a princess, but the daughter of the palace advisor. But to Charlotte, Emma was like a sister. The letter said that Emma had been offered a job in another country. It was a very good job, a job Emma had always dreamed about. It was in France, in the city of Paris. Emma would be working for an important fashion company. The letter said Emma was very excited about this job, but it also said something that broke Charlotte's heart. The letter said that Emma would be leaving in 4 weeks. 4 weeks. That was all the time Charlotte had left with her best friend. Charlotte had read the letter many times. She had read it so many times that she had almost memorized it. She had read it in her bedroom, in the hallway, and in the bathroom. She had read it while sitting at the dinner table. She had read it while lying in her bed at night. And every time she read it, she felt the same pain in her chest. No one at the palace really understood what this meant for Charlotte. They did not understand that having a best friend was very rare for a princess. Most of the time, Charlotte was alone, even when she was with many people. She had to smile and be careful about what she said. She had to think about how her words and actions would look in the newspapers. She had to remember that she was a princess first and a person second. But Emma was different. With Emma, Charlotte could just be herself. She could laugh without thinking about it. She could cry without worrying about how it looked. She could say things that were not polite or royal, and Emma would not care. Emma loved her just because she was Charlotte, not because she was a princess. This was why the news was so painful. At 9 o'clock that morning, Charlotte had a meeting with the palace secretary about a party that would happen in 2 months. The secretary was a woman named Mrs. Patterson. She was very old and very strict about rules. She had worked in the palace for 50 years. She did not like things that were different or strange. "Your Highness," Mrs. Patterson said, "we must decide on the menu for the royal dinner in November. We need to know how many guests you will bring. We need to plan the flowers. We need to arrange the music." Charlotte sat in a hard wooden chair in the secretary's office. The office had no windows and no flowers. It was a cold, boring room. She tried very hard to pay attention to what Mrs. Patterson was saying, but her mind kept thinking about Emma in Paris and the 4 weeks that remained. "Your Highness," Mrs. Patterson said again. "Are you listening?" "Yes," Charlotte said quietly. "I am sorry. I was thinking about something else." "Well, we cannot have you thinking about something else," Mrs. Patterson said sharply. "You are a princess. Your job is to listen to these things. Your job is to care about these things. That is your duty." The word duty made Charlotte feel very tired. That was the word that was used in the palace more than any other word. Duty, responsibility, obligation. These words followed her everywhere. All her life, people had told her what her duty was. She had a duty to smile at people she did not know. She had a duty to wear beautiful clothes, even when she wanted to wear comfortable clothes. She had a duty to go to parties and events, even when she wanted to stay home and read books. She had a duty to represent the royal family. She had a duty to be perfect, always perfect. When she was a little girl, these duties seemed like games. It was fun to wear a beautiful dress. It was exciting to meet people. But now, at 23 years old, Charlotte felt like these duties were chains that held her down. That afternoon, Charlotte had a lunch with the Queen. That was her mother. They sat in the gold dining room, which was very big and very formal. There were 20 plates and glasses on the table. Even though only 2 people were eating, everything was silent except for the sound of forks and knives on plates. "You seem sad today," the Queen said. She did not ask this as a question. She said like a fact that she had noticed. "I am fine, Mother," Charlotte said. This was what she always said. "Emma told me she is moving to France," the Queen said. She was looking at her food, not at Charlotte. Charlotte's heart stopped. How did the Queen know? She had not told anyone about Emma's letter. "I think this is good for her," the Queen continued. "She will have a better life in France. She will find a husband there. Probably she will have a real life, not this life that we have here." The Queen said these words like they were simple facts, like she was talking about the weather. But to Charlotte, these words meant something terrible. They meant that the Queen thought Emma's life away from the palace would be better than Emma's life here with Charlotte. They meant that even her own mother understood that being with Charlotte was not a good thing for Emma. Charlotte put down her fork. She could not eat any more. She felt like her chest was breaking into pieces. When the guards saw her leave the dining room early, they knew something very bad had happened. They followed her quietly as she walked back to the garden. They watched as she sat under the old oak tree again. And this time, Captain James understood. The weight of duty, the responsibility of being perfect, of being royal, of being alone even when surrounded by people, had become too heavy for her to carry alone. 3 days after Charlotte sat under the oak tree, she had an important scheduled appointment. It was written in her calendar. It was planned by the palace staff. It was something she could not skip or cancel. She had to go to St. Mary's Children's Hospital in the city. She had to visit the children who were sick. She had to smile and take pictures. She had to do her duty. The palace team had prepared Charlotte for this visit for 2 weeks. They had told her all the information she needed to know. They had written speeches for her to say. They had planned where she would go, who she would meet, and how long she would stay. Everything was controlled and planned. Nothing was left to chance. On the morning of the hospital visit, Charlotte put on a beautiful blue dress. The dress was expensive and perfect. It was the kind of dress that people would see in the newspapers and magazines. Her hair was arranged perfectly. Her makeup was done perfectly. Everything about her looked like a princess should look. But inside, Charlotte did not feel perfect. She felt empty and sad. She felt like she was wearing a costume, like she was acting a role in a play. She was not really Charlotte. She was Princess Charlotte, and that was a very different thing. Captain James saw this when he helped her into the car. He saw that her smile did not reach her eyes. He saw that she was just going through the motions. Thomas and Michael sat in the front seat of the big black car. James sat beside Charlotte. They drove through the city in silence. When they arrived at the hospital, There were nurses and doctors waiting to greet Charlotte. There were also photographers and newspaper people. The hospital wanted everyone to know that the princess was visiting. The visit was good for the hospital. It made people care more about the children who were sick there. "Your Highness," said the hospital director, a man named Dr. Williams. He was smiling very wide. "We are so happy you are here. The children are very excited to meet you. They know you are coming." "Thank you for inviting me," Charlotte said. Her words were the words she had been taught to say. They were polite, but not real. Dr. Williams led her through the hospital. They walked through long hallways that smelled like medicine. They passed rooms where sick children were lying in beds. Charlotte waved at them and smiled. The children waved back. Some of them looked very sick. Some of them looked very scared. But Charlotte kept walking. This was what she was supposed to do. They came to a big room where about 20 children were sitting or lying down. The room had toys and bright colors on the walls. There were paintings of animals and rainbows. The children ranged from very small, maybe 5 years old, to teenagers. Some were in wheelchairs. Some had tubes coming out of their arms. Some had no hair because of medicine they were taking. Dr. Williams introduced Charlotte to all the children. He told them facts about her. He told them about her royal family. He told them that she was visiting them today. He said it all like he was reading from a script. "Thank you for coming to see us," one little girl said. Her name was Emma. She was 8 years old. She had brown curly hair and big brown eyes. She was sitting in a wheelchair. At the sound of the name Emma, Charlotte felt something inside her break. She had not expected to meet a child with the same name as her best friend. The world suddenly felt very small and very sad. "Would you like to sit with me?" the little girl asked. She was pointing to an empty space on the bed beside her wheelchair. Charlotte looked at Dr. Williams. He nodded like she was asking permission to do something kind. She walked over and sat down on the edge of the bed. The small Emma looked up at her with bright eyes. "Are you really a princess?" the little girl asked. "Yes," Charlotte said. "I am." "That must be fun," the girl said. "Do you get to do whatever you want?" Charlotte looked at the small girl, and suddenly she did not want to lie. She did not want to pretend. She wanted to be honest with someone, even if it was a child she had just met. "No," Charlotte said quietly. "I do not get to do whatever I want. I have to do what people tell me to do. I have to be perfect all the time." The small Emma looked surprised, but she was smiling. "Me too," she said. "The doctors tell me what to do. My mom tells me what to do. They say I have to be brave. They say I have to keep fighting. But sometimes I'm tired of fighting." Charlotte felt tears come into her eyes. She had not planned to cry. She was not supposed to cry. But she could not stop the tears. She could not stop herself from asking the next question. "What are you fighting?" Charlotte asked. "I have something called cerebral palsy," Emma said. She said the words like she had said them many times before. "It means my body does not work the way other bodies work. The doctors say I will never walk without help. They say I will always need a wheelchair." Charlotte looked at this brave little girl, and she felt the breaking inside her become bigger and bigger. She thought about all the complaints she had made in her mind about her duties. She thought about how hard it was to smile and wear perfect clothes and be watched all the time. And here was this little girl who had real problems, real pain, and she was still smiling. "But you know what?" the little Emma said. "I want to be a writer. I want to write stories. I want to write about magic and adventure and people who do amazing things. And I am going to do that even if my legs do not work." Something changed in Charlotte at that moment. She stopped thinking about her own sadness. She started listening to Emma's dreams. She sat with the little girl for 40 minutes. She forgot about the schedule. She forgot about the photographs. She forgot about her duty. She just listened. She laughed at Emma's jokes. She cried when Emma told her about her fears. She held Emma's small hand. And for the first time in a very long time, Charlotte was not acting. She was being real. When it was time to leave, Charlotte did not want to go. She hugged the little Emma and promised to write to her. She meant with all her heart Captain James watched from the door. He saw the princess cry real tears. He saw her forget about being perfect. He saw her discover something important. And he understood that everything was about to change for Princess Charlotte. After the hospital visit, everything about Princess Charlotte changed. But the change was not the kind of change that people could see on the outside. Her face still looked the same. She still wore beautiful clothes. She still performed her duties as a princess. But inside, everything was different. And Captain James was the first to notice. The morning after she visited the hospital, Charlotte woke up at 5 o'clock. This was very early, much earlier than she usually woke up. Normally, she slept until 8 o'clock. But that morning, she got out of bed in the darkness and went to her desk. She turned on a small lamp and pulled out some paper. She began to write a letter. The letter was to the little girl named Emma. Charlotte wrote about everything she could remember from their conversation. She wrote about Emma's dreams of being a writer. She wrote that she believed Emma would become a great writer. She wrote that she would help Emma in any way she could. She filled the pages with words and drawings. It took her 2 hours to write the letter. When James brought her breakfast at 7 o'clock, he saw her at the desk. He saw the letter in front of her. He did not say anything, but he noticed, and he understood that something important had happened to Princess. For the next week, Charlotte woke up early every morning. She wrote letters to the little Emma. She wrote about her own life and the things she had learned. She asked questions about Emma's dreams. She drew pictures. She made the letters beautiful and special. James delivered these letters to the hospital himself. Even though this was not his regular job, he did it because he wanted to help the princess with this new thing that seemed to matter so much to her. But Charlotte did not just write letters. She did something else too. She began to research. She spent time in the palace library, looking at books about children's diseases and disabilities. She read about cerebral palsy. She read about other illnesses that children suffered from. She took notes. She learned. Captain James would find her in the library late at night, reading and writing by lamplight. "Your Highness," he said one night, "it is very late. You should rest." "I cannot rest, James," she said. She had started calling him by his first name now, instead of Captain. "There is so much I do not know. There are so many children who are suffering, and I have been living in this palace, doing nothing to help them." James sat down in a chair across from her. He had never done this before. Normally, he stood at attention, but Charlotte gestured for him to sit, and he did. "I have been thinking about something," Charlotte said. "What if I could start something? What if I could help these children? What if I could use my position as a princess to do something that actually matters?" "What do you mean?" James asked. He had an idea what she was thinking, but he wanted to hear her say it. "I want to start a foundation," Charlotte said. "A foundation that helps children with disabilities and sicknesses. I want to give them money. I want to help them go to school. I want to help their families. I want to do something that makes a real difference in the world." James smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "That is a very good idea, Your Highness." "Charlotte," she said, "please call me Charlotte when we are alone." After this night, James became more than a guard. He became a helper. He understood that his job was not just to keep her safe from danger. His job was to help her do this important thing. He made phone calls for her. He brought her information she needed. He made sure that no one at the palace tried to stop her plans. Thomas and Michael also began to help, although they did not say anything about it. They noticed that Charlotte often left her room late at night to go to the library. Instead of reporting this to the palace director, they made sure the hallways were safe and quiet. They guarded her privacy. They became part of her secret. 2 weeks after the hospital visit, Charlotte called a meeting with the palace lawyer. His name was Mr. Robert Davies. He was a kind man who had worked for the royal family for many years. Charlotte told him about her plan for the foundation. She told him that she wanted to use some of her personal money to start it. She wanted it to help children. "This is a wonderful idea, Your Highness," Mr. Davies said. "But we must be careful. We must plan this correctly. We must make sure the foundation is legal and proper." "How long will it take?" Charlotte asked. Perhaps 3 months, he said. Maybe 4 months. Charlotte felt disappointed. She wanted to help the children now. She did not want to wait 3 or 4 months. But she understood that some things take time. During these weeks of waiting, Charlotte did many things. She wrote letters to little Emma every single day. She read more books about helping children. She drew plans for what the foundation could do. She imagined buildings where children could come for help. She imagined doctors and teachers working together to care for sick and disabled children. One day, she received a letter back from little Emma. It was written in a child's handwriting, with some words spelled wrong, but it was beautiful. Emma wrote about her dreams. She wrote that she was writing a story about a princess who helped children. She wrote that she believed Charlotte was the kindest person in the world. When Charlotte read this letter, she cried. But these were different tears from before. These were tears of hope. These were tears of purpose. Captain James watched all of this from a distance. He watched as a sad princess became a purposeful woman. He watched as she discovered something that made her life feel meaningful. He watched as she stopped complaining about her duties and started creating something new and important. He also did something that most guards would never do. He gathered the other guards and he told them about Charlotte's plan. He told them that they needed to protect her in a different way now. They needed to protect her privacy as she worked on this foundation. They needed to make sure no one discovered what she was doing before it was ready to be shared with the world. We are not just guards, James told Thomas and Michael. We are guardians of her heart. We are protecting not just her body, but her dreams and her hopes. Do you understand? Yes, Captain, they said together. And so the silent guardianship began. The guards watched over Princess Charlotte, not as a duty, but as a privilege. They saw her becoming someone greater than a princess. They saw her becoming someone who could change the world. For months had passed since Charlotte visited the children's hospital and met little Emma. 4 months of secret planning. 4 months of working late into the night. 4 months of dreaming about something that could truly change the world. Now, on a beautiful spring morning, that dream was about to become real. The Charlotte Foundation for Children's Health and Happiness was going to be announced today. The announcement would happen in a big hall in the palace. Important people would be there, doctors, nurses, newspaper people, and government leaders. But more importantly, the children would be there. The children from a hospital, including little Emma, would be there to see Charlotte's dream come true. Charlotte stood in her bedroom that morning and looked at herself in the mirror. She was wearing a simple white dress, not the fancy, expensive dresses she usually wore. The dress was elegant but not cold. It was beautiful but not perfect. It was a dress that said she was a real person, not just a princess playing a role. Captain James knocked on her door at 9 o'clock. "Your Highness, it is time," he said. "James," Charlotte said, turning to face him, "I could not have done this without you, without all of you. Thank you." James smiled. It was a warm smile, not the cold, professional smile he usually wore. "This was your dream, Charlotte. We just helped protect it." As they walked through the palace hallways toward the big announcement hall, Charlotte felt something she had never felt before. She felt peaceful. She felt like she was doing something that was truly hers, not something that duty or tradition demanded of her. She felt like she was being honest with herself and with the world. When she entered the announcement hall, she saw hundreds of people sitting in chairs. There were doctors in white coats. There were nurses in uniform. There were newspaper people with cameras. And there, in the front row, were the children from the hospital. Little Emma was there too, sitting in her wheelchair, looking so small in the big hall. Charlotte walked to the stage and stood at a podium. Behind her was a large banner with the words, "The Charlotte Foundation for Children's Health and Happiness," in big blue letters. Below the words was a picture of many children smiling together. For a moment, Charlotte said nothing. She just looked out at all the faces watching her. She thought about how far she had come. She thought about the sad girl who sat under the oak tree. She thought about the moment when she cried in the hospital. She thought about all the late nights reading and planning and writing. Then she began to speak. But she did not speak the way a princess usually speaks. She did not use fancy words. She did not follow a prepared speech written by someone else. She spoke from her heart. "My name is Charlotte," she said, "and I am here today because I learned something very important 4 months ago. I learned that being a princess is not about having beautiful clothes or living in a beautiful palace. Being a princess is about using what you have to help other people." The hall was completely silent. Everyone was listening. "For months ago," Charlotte continued, "I met a brave little girl named Emma. She has something called cerebral palsy. This means her body does not work the way other bodies work. But you know what? Emma is braver than anyone I have ever met. Emma dreams of becoming a writer. Emma dreams of changing the world with her stories." Charlotte pointed to little Emma in the front row. Emma's face turned red, but she was smiling. "When I met Emma," Charlotte said, "I realized something. I realized that I had been living in a palace, doing my duty, being perfect, but I had not been living a real life. I had not been doing something that truly mattered. So I decided to change that. I decided to start this foundation." Charlotte walked across the stage and stood before a large screen. "This foundation will do many things," she said. "First, we will help children who are sick or disabled. We will pay for their medical care. Second, we will help them go to school and learn. Third, we will help their families. We will give their parents money to help them take care of their children. Fourth, we will build special centers where children can play and learn and feel happy, even when they are sick." Images appeared on the screen behind her. They showed drawings that Charlotte had made. They showed buildings with bright colors. They showed gardens where children could play. They showed classrooms and libraries and art studios. "But most importantly," Charlotte said, "this foundation is about love. It is about caring for children who are suffering. It is about telling them that they matter. It is about telling them that their dreams matter. It is about telling them that the world is better because they are in it." As Charlotte spoke these words, she looked directly at little Emma, and little Emma began to cry. Not sad tears, but happy tears. "I could not have done this alone," Charlotte said. "I had help from people who believed in me. I had help from Captain James Mitchell and his team. They protected not just my body, but my dreams. They helped me become who I really am." James stood at the back of the hall, and for the first time, tears came to his eyes too. He understood that Charlotte was thanking him publicly, even though it was not the royal thing to do. She was breaking the rules because she wanted people to know that she was grateful. "The Charlotte Foundation begins today," Charlotte announced, "and our first gift is to the children of St. Mary's Children's Hospital. We are giving $1 million to the hospital to help them care for sick children. And we are inviting all of these brave children to help us plan what comes next." When Charlotte finished speaking, the entire hall stood up and clapped. The sound was very loud. The sound was like thunder. The newspaper people began taking pictures. But Charlotte did not wave at them or smile the perfect smile. Instead, she walked down from the stage and went to little Emma. She kneeled down so she was at the same level as the little girl. "Thank you," little Emma said. "Thank you for listening to my dreams. Thank you for teaching me about real courage," Charlotte said, and she hugged the little girl. That night, as the guards drove Charlotte back to her bedroom, James spoke to her. "You were extraordinary today, Your Highness," he said. "Charlotte," she reminded him gently. "Just Charlotte." "You were extraordinary, Charlotte," James said. "You showed the world who you really are, a woman with a kind heart, a woman who cares about other people, a woman who is brave enough to follow her dreams." Charlotte looked out the window at the city lights below. She thought about the journey she had taken. She thought about the moment under the oak tree when everything felt hopeless. She thought about little Emma and her dreams. She thought about how pain can become purpose. "I understand now," Charlotte said quietly. "I understand why you guards took notice of me that morning. You saw something in me that I could not see in myself. You saw that I was strong enough to change. You saw that I could be more than just a princess going through the motions. You saw that I could become myself." James nodded. "We saw someone worth protecting, and now the whole world will see it too." As the car drove through the night, Princess Charlotte felt something she had never felt before. She felt like her life finally made sense. She felt like everything she had suffered, every difficult moment, every tear, had led her here. She was not just a princess anymore. She was someone who could change the world. And it all began because the royal guards immediately took notice of her pain and decided to help her transform it into something beautiful.